4 years ago, and this is me staring totally zombified into the computer. You can see the glow of the screen off my face. Yes, exactly. Internet dependence, and that was what I had. Internet dependence is defined as excessive use of the internet which interferes with daily life. This was first proposed by Ivan Goldberg in 1995 for the DSM. For those of you who don't know, the DSM is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. It's basically a database of disorders. Unfortunately, Dr. Goldberg later revealed his research to be part of a satirical hoax aimed at discrediting the entire DSM community. So, as you can imagine, that was a really big setback for the official recognition of internet dependence. But what has really helped internet dependence come together is a new scientifically recognized test to assess it. That's really important. The Internet Addiction Test was developed by Dr. Kimberly Young, and an analysis of it was published in Cyberpsychology and Behavior, a peer-reviewed journal. Author Wiggjanto, L. and McMoran, The Psychometric Properties of the Internet Addiction Test. It was used online to assess internet addiction. You can actually take this test yourself, kind of quickly, just do a Google search for internet addiction real quick. The Internet Addiction Test is the instrument type is a 20-question survey. Each question is answered on a Likert type scale where 1 equals rarely, 2 equals occasionally, 3 is frequently, 4 is often, 5 is always. And the goal of the test is to assess your emotional dependence upon the internet. So examples of the test questions include: how often do you find you stay online longer than intended? How often do others in your life complain to you about the amount of time you spend online? And how often do your grades or schoolwork suffer because of the amount of time that you spend online? Notice there's no question that is how many hours a day do you spend online? Because you can be an online business person, a person who uses the internet for, your business, and you don't have an emotional dependence on it. It's your tool. So the goal of this test is to assess your addiction to it, your emotional dependence. The scoring is very simple. You get set in one of 3 categories. If you get a score between 20 and 100. From 20 to 49 points is basically an average internet user. It's not really that big of a deal. You might want to assess your dependence if you're closer to 49, obviously, but it's not really much of a problem. From 50 to 79 points, which is where I scored when I first took this test, is basically you are experiencing occasional or frequent problems because of the internet. You should consider their full impact on your life. When I read that, I was like, no. But anyway. The 80 to 100 points. I've never met a person who scored this high, but I imagine you would not meet this person because they would be in their mom's basement, not coming out of their house. But anyway, this is obviously where you have a serious internet addiction. And for those of you who have doubts, yes, internet addiction can become very serious. It has caused people the destruction of marriages, the destruction of families. People even get into gaming tournaments and they stop eating for days and then they can die. I mean, it's really a big deal. So the analysis of the test, this is the most important part, because without a real test to assess internet dependence, it can never be recognized, especially in light of Dr. Goldman's hilarious joke about it being real but not being real. The results are that it has high internal consistency, which, not to get too detailed about psychological statistics, but basically that means that it measures whether several items that are supposed to measure the same general construct produce similar results. So one question where you said, are you addicted to the internet, and you scored high on that, another one that was a similar question, you wouldn't have a low score because that's the same basic concept. And it has high congruent validity, so similar results in this field that it measures well with what's been previously validated. So in my future, step 1 is to go to graduate school, even though I realize it will seriously cut into my sitting around time and Facebook farm-town time. But, you know, you do have to eventually take breaks from farming virtual crops. I would like to go to seminary school and study, put this together, my faith, my spiritual walk, and my interest in internet addiction. I want to study internet dependence as part of a research when I get to that point eventually, and I would like to do therapy for those in the church who struggle with internet dependence. So I'm also going to take a shameless moment to thank all my buddies and friends who have helped me get this far. Thank you very much.